afternoon. National Assembly for Wales is now in session, and the first item this afternoon is questions to the First Minister. And question one is Sandy Bowes.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, will you make a statement on what support the Welsh Government is giving to improve community-based treatment services for people suffering from eye conditions, including wet age-related macular degeneration?
Yes, the new £400,000 investment establishes 4 wet AMD pathfinders in out-of-hospital settings, making it more convenient for people to access the right care in the right place at the right time. And this will lead over time to a significant transfer of services away from hospitals into local communities.
Thank you. As the chair of the cross-party group on vision loss, I'm sure we will all be welcoming this recent announcement. I certainly do. Moving services out of hospitals and into people's homes will help them enormously, especially as some of them are already suffering from significant sight loss. But can I ask you, First Minister, after the results of the currently planned pilot schemes are published, does the Welsh Government intend to extend these schemes and support services, for example, for my constituents in Delyn and across the rest of Wales?
Yes, the overall aim of all 4 of the Pathfinder pilot proposals is to establish a model or models of care that can potentially be replicated across other health board areas. Depending, of course, on what the evaluation tells us, the intention is very much that they are extended to other parts of Wales. There are currently over 40,000 people accessing wet AMD services in secondary care across Wales, and we anticipate moving a considerable number of these people into primary care for treatment via one or more of the Pathfinder models.
Jonathan Saunders.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, 29% of people within the Betsy Cadwaladr University Health Board do not have regular 2-yearly eye tests, with one of the primary reasons given for this that they hadn't even thought about it or didn't see the importance of it. Given the other serious eye conditions that can be detected during a routine eye test, how will you work and your government to ensure that we have a better, improved uptake of regular eye tests?
Well, these things are important, as the member has said. We are, of course, the first country in the world to have an eye care plan. And, of course, we encourage people to take regular eye tests, not just, of course, to test their eyesight, but, as the member rightly points out, a number of conditions that are not only eye-related can actually be diagnosed via such an eye test. But the eye care plan itself, of course, explains how we offer a holistic approach to people's eye health.
Question 2, Julie Morgan.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister make a statement on the health provision for people with haemophilia in Wales?
Yes, we continue to support services within the NHS and in the third sector to improve the lives of people with haemophilia. The Welsh Health Specialist Services Committee is working with health boards in undertaking service planning in various areas relating to the future provision of services.
I thank the First Minister for that reply, and a lot of progress has been made in Wales with access to the new life-transforming drugs for people who've contracted hepatitis C, and of course the appointment of a hepatologist at the Heath. But there's still an ongoing problem with financial support for people with haemophilia, and the haemophilia community in Wales are deeply disappointed by the statement made by the Westminster Government towards the end of last week about changes to the support that is given to people with haemophilia. Too little, too late, and not enough attention to dependents. So will the First Minister personally approach the Westminster Government and speak up for the haemophilia community in Wales to try to get a better settlement after such another blow to such a beleaguered community?
Yes, I will, and I thank the member for raising the issue with me. We know that a huge amount of progress has been made in terms of the treatment or the management, rather, of haemophilia. She'll be aware, of course, of the additional money that was made available to treat hepatitis C for those who had contracted it. That was announced on the 22nd of September. But she has asked me to raise an issue with the UK government, and I'll be pleased to do so.
We now move to questions from the party leaders. And first this afternoon, we have the Leader of the Opposition, Andrew Archie-Davies.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, tomorrow the Welsh Conservatives have tabled a debate on the local government settlement and in particular the inability to support rural councils against such as Powys, for example, with a 4% cut that they're facing. In questions that the Public Service Minister took a fortnight ago, he was unable to confirm whether the local government settlement was part of the overall budget agreement that you had agreed with the Liberal Democrats. Are you able to confirm whether you did have agreement that the local government settlement should have been supported along with the main budget?
Well, it's a matter, of course, between ourselves and the Liberal Democrats in terms of the budget agreement that's been struck, but we're confident that the local government settlement that will be announced as part of the draft budget in due course will be one that will be acceptable. I have to say, of course, to the Leader of the Opposition that his party's policy is to further cut local government spending, as indeed has happened in England.
First Minister, your answer was about as clear as mud. I think it's quite a legitimate question to ask whether you or your government was able to confirm whether it was part of the overall budget deal. Your Public Services Minister was unable to confirm that. That really does show the chaos and confusion at the heart of the government when it comes to the budget. When we look at education, for example, and in particular the Estin report that's out today, it does show that under 17 years of leadership of the Labour government here on education, there is still a marked contrast between the quality of teaching and learning. There is still a huge gap between the schools that are doing well and those that are not doing so good. The gap is still considerable. And there is a polarisation in the inspection outcomes for secondary schools. After 17 years of Labour running education here in Wales, do you not think this report is a damning indictment of your failure to improve outcomes in education? I
have to say to the Leader of the Opposition, what is agreed between ourselves and the Liberal Democrats is a matter for us. If he'd have wanted to approach us with some kind of proposal, and that's a matter for him. He can't complain in those circumstances. I bet he hasn't read the Estin report, because let me remind him what's actually in it. Levels of excellence in primary schools have risen from 8% to 18% over the last 5 years. Levels of schools displaying some excellence in secondary has risen from 23% to 38% over 5 years. Levels of basic literacy and numeracy are improving. The gap between deprived pupils and their peers showed the biggest closing of the gap in recent years this year, allied to a renewed focus through the Pupil Deprivation Grant. Improvements have been seen this year across the foundation stage and key stages 2 and 3. The best GCSE results ever. Level 2 inclusive up 2.5% to 57.9%, 69.7% achieved A star to C. You shouldn't have asked the question if you didn't want the answer. 69.7% achieved A star to C in English or Welsh, up 2.5%. 64.4% achieved A star to C in maths, up 2.7%. In addition, we are building and improving schools, over 150 schools across Wales, through the 21st Century Schools programme, and we are proud of what we're doing.
The fact is, when you internationally benchmark education here in Wales, when you look at the gap between other parts of the United Kingdom, where there have been huge improvements of pupils being taught in schools with far greater achievements than the direction your government has set schools here in Wales, we are still lagging other parts of the United Kingdom and other parts of Europe. And this report clearly shows this. But also another report that is out today is the Public Accounts Committee report into the RIFU and the sell-off of land that the Welsh Government held on behalf of the Welsh people. And when you look at the sums involved, the sums are actually astronomical. When you look at the land in Roos, for example, sold for £1.8 million and then selling to developers for £10 million to build houses on. When you look at the Lisvane land, selling for £2 million and now having a value of £37 million. And you also look at the land in Abergele, which was sold for £100,000. Again, several million pounds that piece of land was sold for as well. This is all land that has been lost, money that has been lost to the Welsh purse to invest in regeneration and public services the length and breadth of Wales. Do you not think that that is a damning indictment of the way your government and your ministers account to the Welsh people for looking after their assets and disposing of them in such a cavalier fashion?
I'm not surprised the Leader of the Opposition moved on very quickly from education after his utter failure to convince the people of Wales of what he sees as failings in the Welsh education system. The Estin report says quite the opposite if he read it. The situation in England is an unaccountable mess, where nobody seems to be accountable for school progress, We in Wales are seeing progress improving in our schools. That is not the case in England. We are building schools. You dropped the schools building programme in England. You're not building schools in England. You dropped it. And I have no doubt that if ever you came anywhere near the reins of power in Wales, you would stop building schools in Wales and improving schools in Wales, because you have no real stake in the Welsh education system. Let me turn to the issue that he raised with regard to RIFU. It is correct to say that the way that RIFU was managed fell well below the standards we would expect as a government, and for that we are sorry. It is true to say that the concept was good, but the delivery was flawed. And, of course, as members deserve, the government will give a full response to the report itself, which does raise serious issues we acknowledge in the proper course of time.
We now move to Leader Plaid Cymru, Leanne Wood.
Diolch, Llywydd. First Minister, universities and higher education institutions are the backbone not only of our economy but of our entire country. In your draft budget, you are proposing to what is, in effect, a £41 million cut to Welsh university funding. Last week, we had the devastating news about job losses at Tata Steel. Now, there is every possibility that the job losses facing higher education could be greater in number than those announced by Tata last week, and they will impact on almost every community throughout the country. Have you made any assessment as to the number of job losses as a result of that cut?
I don't accept there need to be any job losses. The total income of HE in Wales in 1 year is 1.3 billion. And so 40 million, though a substantial amount of money, is a small percentage of the total income of HE in Wales. Secondly, we know that many HE institutions have substantial reserves, up to 100 million, and maybe beyond in the case of some of them. We know that FE colleges had difficulties last year, and we understood that, and we listened, and we made sure this year the situation was easier for them. It's important that people understand, of course, we've had a cut in our budget. The leader of Plaid Cymru will have heard me say that on many occasions. But HE institutions are far more robust in terms of their reserves, in terms of the income that they can attract. Yes, we will listen to them, of course, but nevertheless, I think it has to be put in the context of what their overall income is.
I'm staggered that you've made no assessment as to the potential job losses as a result of this cut, and there will be a cut. There is a reduction in HEFCW's budget, according to your own figures, from £129 million this year to £88 million next year. And that cut could translate to a 40% cut to research funding, and that is according to HEFCW. And that will not only result in job losses, but it will also put Welsh universities at a competitive disadvantage when it comes to research. Now, First Minister, this cut means that you will be spending more money on universities outside of Wales than you will be spending on the entire HEFCW budget. Are you prepared to confirm that that is the case?
I do not accept there need to be any job losses. Any job losses as a result of what has been proposed. Universities have substantial reserves. Other organisations are expected to draw on those reserves. I fail to see why universities should be treated differently. That said, we will listen to any case that they will make, but they have to accept that many sectors have found it difficult. They cannot be immune to the cuts that we're seeing from the UK government, and bear in mind that their total income is far, far higher, for example, than the income that exists for FE colleges. Now, turning to the point that the Leader of Plaid Cymru makes, which is that she wants to stop paying the tuition fees of those students from Wales who choose to study in England, which is her party's policy. I do not support that in principle. I think it's important that money follows Welsh students. I think HE institutions in Wales must compete for Welsh students, rather than having them delivered on a plate. I think it's important that Welsh students have a choice. For example, if they have the opportunity to go to Oxford or Cambridge, they should have the chance to have that opportunity. If they want to study courses that aren't available in Wales, then why should they be penalised financially for the fact that they would then have to pay 3 times as much as they do now? So no, we are not, I would not support a situation where we should look at crudely cutting back on the tuition fee support that's available to students from Wales who choose to study outside Wales.
First Minister, you were sounding very complacent, and this questioning session is not about Plaid Cymru's policy. We will have plenty of opportunity to discuss Plaid Cymru's policy. This is my opportunity to question you about your policy. And First Minister, it is without dispute that you will spend over £90 million on funding universities outside of Wales. For the first time ever, that will be more than the entire HEFCO budget. Now, First Minister, what is clear is that you have no policy beyond the Diamond Review. You haven't confirmed what you will do for student support. The only thing that you have confirmed is that you want to make this £41 million cut, which is a cut of 32% to Welsh universities. Do you have any intention of being open and transparent with people about your intentions for higher education before the election next May? And will you start that process by reversing this cut to HEFCO?
Well, can I say, the Leader of Plaid Cymru suggests that somehow I'm not answering her questions. I am, she just doesn't like the answers. I mean, the reality is, she dresses up her argument that we are funding universities in England at 290 million. We are funding Welsh students. We are funding Welsh students. Now, what she objects to, and you know, it's a matter of her party, is that we should fund Welsh students to study outside Wales. That is what she objects to. Now, I do not agree with that position. I don't think that it's right for students in Wales to have to pay £9,000 a year in tuition fees, just like in England. I do not accept that. Secondly, I do not accept that students in Wales should be penalised because they study outside Wales or study courses that aren't available in Wales. So when she says this is, she tries to suggest this is money we're somehow giving to universities in England. We are giving money to Welsh students to study and escape the level of debts that their colleagues, unfortunately, in England face when they leave college.
You cut in here,
Thank you. Thank you. We now move to the Leader of the Welsh Liberal Democrats, Kirsty Williams.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, today's Eston report does demonstrate that schools displaying some elements of excellence are improving, which is good news indeed. But the number of schools that are viewed as unsatisfactory has also increased. The report challenges you and local authorities to identify and support schools that are struggling sooner and earlier. Could you outline how you will address that point?
Yes, Schools Challenge Cymru, of course, is the way that we have dealt with that. We're seeing some very good improvements across the sector and those that are part of that scheme. Tonorewal community, Tonopandi, I beg, Tonopandi, I look at the member for Rhondda, I know Tonorewal's not in the Rhondda. Tonopandi Community School, for example, has seen an incredible improvement rather, in performance in just 1 year. So from our point of view, we have put money into those schools that we believe are not up to the standard we would expect, and we are seeing results in terms of their performance. There is a challenge for local authorities. They deliver education on the ground. I'm glad to see that there are fewer local authorities who are the subject of special measures, and that will help to strengthen consistency across Wales.
But School Challenge Cymru only assists a limited number of schools, and there are schools that have been put into special measures since School Challenge Cymru was invented and implemented who don't get any additional support at all. And those are schools that have been identified by Eston as struggling. So the question is, why do those schools not receive support under Schools Challenge Cymru, and schools that are not in special measures potentially do? The report also says that initiatives, and there's been a lot of those, are only as good as the people who implement them. What are you doing as a government to foster strong leadership and excellent teaching and high aspirations at all our schools? And would you agree with me it's time to establish a Welsh Academy of Leadership to promote high-quality school leadership and help the best leaders to work in the most challenging schools?
Well, we're seeing examples of that across Wales as it is. Schools Challenge Cymru is an example of where that does happen, where leadership changes in schools in order for schools to improve. The LEAs have the initial responsibility for helping schools. They need to identify schools quickly and make sure that help is made available to those schools in a timely manner. And it's for them, of course, to provide that help. Yes, it is for us, of course, to provide help through schemes such as Schools Challenge Cymru, and we have done that. I have to say, it would be more useful for us as a government in terms of providing training, in terms of providing a good package for teachers if we had control of teachers' paying conditions. No question about that, because we can't control the employment supply teachers, we can't control teachers' paying conditions, we can't control, for example, things like inset days. And so from our point of view, being able to deliver a proper package in terms of pay, conditions, leadership, I think we could deliver a more comprehensive package, even on top of what we deliver at the moment through schemes such as Schools Challenge Cymru.
With all due respect, First Minister, you may have had the opportunity to have those powers if Owen Smith hadn't sat in a meeting with me, you and other people in this room and objected wholeheartedly to teachers' paying conditions being devolved. Now then, the one startlingly good piece of news in this report, which you referred to earlier in your answer to Andrew R.T. Davies, is the closing of the gap between those pupils from our most deprived backgrounds who qualify for free school meals and those who don't. Would you agree with me, First Minister, that the outstanding success policy in education over the last couple of years has indeed been the introduction of the pupil deprivation grant, one that the Liberal Democrats had to persuade you to introduce?
I'll give her that one in terms of the pupil deprivation grant. We see the results, and it's something, of course, which I've been fairly open about in terms of the fact that it was a suggestion of the Liberal Democrats. It's one element, though. Let's not pretend it's because of the pupil deprivation grant that things are improving in Welsh education. It's responsible for improvements in some areas. When we look at the highest GCSE results ever, that is because of what we have done as a government. If we look at literacy and numeracy improving, it's because of the literacy and numeracy framework. And we are seeing schools in Wales improve year by year. That's a tribute to those who work in those schools. It's a tribute to certainly some local authorities, many local authorities who have put in the work to improve schools in their area. And also, of course, it is testament to the fact that we have put in over £1 billion, or are putting in over £1 billion worth of investment so that our children can be taught in the schools that they expect to be taught in, unlike the situation in England where schools are crumbling.
We now move back to questions on the paper, and question 3 is Paul Davies.
Diolch, Llywydd. Beth y mae Llywodraeth Cymru yn wneud i wella economi Sir Benfro?
Wel, mae'r economi yn flaenoriaeth wrth gwrs ni Llywodraeth Cymru, a ni'n gweithredu camau eang sy'n cefnogi swyddi, twf ac sy'n gwella'r amgylchiad busnes ar gyfer Sir Benfro a Chymru gyfan.
Prif Weinidog, un ffordd o wella economi Sir Benfro i sicrhau bod y diwydiant amaethyddol yn cael y cymorth y mae'n ei haeddu. Y bore yma roeddwn ni'n falch iawn o noddi brecwast blynyddol Undeb Ymaethwyr Cymru i ddathlu cynnyrch o Gymru ac i gydnabod y cyfraniad sylweddol mae amaethyddiaeth y ffermio yn neud i economi Cymru. O ystyried pwysigrwydd y diwydiant amaethyddol i Sir Benfro ac wrth gwrs i economi Cymru, mae mynd i'r afel a TB mewn gwartheg yn hanfodol. Ac felly o gofio bod eich rhaglen frechu nawr wedi methu, pa gamau mae Llywodraeth Cymru bellach yn cymryd i ddileu'r clefyd hyn?
Mae hwn yn rhywbeth sy'n cael ei ystyried ar hyn o bryd. Beth ni yn gwybod dyw difa moch diar ddim yn cael effaith. Fe welwn ni hwn yn ystod treialon Krebs, lle o difa, wrth gwrs, wedi'n gwneud pethau'n wath achos y ffordd nath difa i wneud. So felly mae'r raglen brechu wedi cymryd lle, a mi'n gwybod bod y gweinidog yn ystyried ar hyn o bryd ym mha ffordd allwn ni symud ymlaen i ddelio gyda TB, a mi'n derbyn bod TB wrth gwrs yn rhywbeth sydd yn ddifrifol i'r diwydiant ameth, ond mae'n bwysig dros ben bod gyda ni system sydd yn effeithiol i ddelio gyda fe.
Simon Thomas.
Diolch, Llywydd. Byddwch chi'n gwybod o'r chymweliad chi y Doc Penford wythnos diwetha bod pobl Sir Benfro yn rhoi croeso twym galon iawn i ymwelwyr. Ac mae diwylliant twristiaeth yn holl bwysig ochr ar ochr a diwylliant amaeth yn y sir honno. Mae Plaid Cymru wedi cyhoeddi a byddwn ni'n dyblu y gyllideb ar gyfer twristiaeth yng Nghymru, a byddwn ni yn rhoi pwyslais arbennig ar twristiaeth fel un o cynheiliaid yn economi a newedig yn ardaloedd gwledig. Beth ych chi'n bwriadu wneud fel Prif Weinidog i hybu diwydiant twristiaeth yn Sir Benfro dros y flwyddyn nesaf?
Wel, o'n i yn meddwl taw nid dadl ar bolisïau Plaid Cymru oedd hwn, ond na fe atebau'r cwestiwn wrth gwrs. Mae twristiaeth yn bwysig dros ben i ni yng Nghymru, ni'n gwybod hynny. Enghraifft, yn 2014 oedd hwnna'n flwyddyn oedd yn record yng Nghymru, 10 miliwn o ymwelwyr am y tro cynta erioed, 700 lan ynglyn â ymweliadau ryngwladol. Fwy o'n i'r ymgyrch y marchnata llynedd, nath hwnna wrth gwrs i greu 240 miliwn o ala yng Nghymru, oedd yna 36% lan o'r flwyddyn cynni. Mae yna waith yn cael ei symud ymlaen ar hyn o bryd mwyn datblygu strategaeth brand i Gymru, mwyn sicrhau bod yn deall beth sydd gyda Cymru i roi. Ac wrth gwrs, y blwyddyn hyn, mae gyda ni blwyddyn menter i hybu'r sector tu allan, bobl sydd yn eisiau beicio, bobl sydd yn eisiau dod i Gymru i gerdded ac yn y blaen, ac i ddweud wrth bobl dewch i Gymru, achos mae Cymru yn lle chi gallu cael menter a sbri. So felly, na beth ni wedi wneud fel Llywodraeth, na beth ni'n wneud y flwyddyn hyn, wrth gofio'r ffaith bod twristiaeth yn bwysig dros ben un economi ni.
Question 4, Russell George.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister make a statement on the remapping of the Wales and Borders rail franchise?
Discussions with the UK Government about the scope of services to be included in the future franchise awarded by Welsh Ministers are ongoing, but no decision has been taken to remap any services.
Thank you, First Minister. I'm aware that a joint Welsh and UK Government working group has been discussing remapping services to be operated by the replacement Wales and Border franchise post-October 2018. And that consideration was given to splitting the current Aberystwyth to Birmingham international service with trains on the Cambrian line terminating in Shrewsbury rather than Birmingham International as they do now. I'm sure you'll agree this would be extremely detrimental to and an inconvenience to passengers. It would also have a negative impact on the Mid-Wales economy. Will you provide instructions to officials to prioritise in their negotiations passenger precedence to the passengers, but also provide a commitment that direct services from Aberystwyth to Birmingham will continue?
Well, I can assure the member that it's our intention to continue, at least with the existing service. There is a threat to the Cardiff-Manchester service on the basis, it appears, that in Department for Transport, they want to see no service that begins in Wales and terminates in England, operated by the Wales and Borders franchise. In other words, the only services that would be run by that franchise would be services that begin and end in Wales. Cardiff Holyhead, of course, goes through England, but that ends in Wales. Why? I have absolutely no idea, because Scotland doesn't have that restriction. ScotRail runs, for example, the sleeper trains out of Euston towards Scotland, but at the moment, it is the suggestion of the Department for Transport that they do not want to see rail services exist between a departure point in Wales and a terminus point in England, and vice versa. We're more than happy to make that case to the UK Government, but it's important to understand that that is the attitude that's been taken so far by the Department for Transport.
Alan Fair-Jones.
Diolch yn fawr. Pa waith paratoi mae Llywodraeth Cymru wedi ei wneud gyda golwg ar gael corff dim amelw ar batrwm glas Cymru fod yn gyfrifol am y fasnachfraint rheilffordd newydd i Gymru?
Wel, mae hwn yn rhywbeth ni'n ystyried hyn o bryd, wrth gwrs. Un o'r pethau ni wedi ystyried yw as na ffordd i sicrhau bod na gwmni yn y pen draws yn gwmni di-elw, ac i weld os bydd y model yna yn gallu gweithio. Ni yn ystyried hwn yn fanwl ar hyn o bryd. Mae'n greu bydd y bod Cymru moyn gweld unrhyw cwmni yn redeg y rheilffyrdd yng Nghymru sydd yn buddsoddi'r arian maen nhw'n wneud nôl mewn i'r gwasanaeth i hunan. So felly mae hwnna'n rhywbeth ni'n ystyried ar hyn o bryd.
Aled Roberts.
Diolch Llywydd. Prif Weinidog, dwi hefyd yn poeni am y gwasanaeth rhwng Caergybi a Manceinion, a hefyd rhwng Wrexham a Bidston a Llandudno a Manceinion, yn ogystal â'r sefyllfa i Birmingham. Gai ofyn felly, os ydych swyddogion chi yn cynnal trafodaethau gwbl efo'r swyddfa Gymreig yn ogystal a'r swyddfa drafnidiaeth, o achos mae Alun Cairns, gweinidog yn y swyddfa Gymreig, ar yr 11 o Ionawr wedi ymateb i gwestiwn ysgrifenedig, lle mae o'n deud, a dwi yn dyfynnu, to ensure proper accountability for passengers in England, it is expected that services primarily serving English markets will be remapped into other Department for Transport franchises in England, and we will consult on specific proposals in due course. Felly hwyrach wneith yr aelod dros Maldwyn gael gair distaw efo i gyd aelod o'r Blaid Geidwadol i sicrhau bod y swyddfa Gymreig hefyd yn brwydro dros Cymru.
Wel, ie. Fy marn ni, jobyn y swyddfa Gymreig yw brwydro dros Gymru a nid esbonio i bobl Cymru beth sy'n dda iddyn nhw a bydd y pethau ddim yn dda iddyn nhw. Os dyna'n ffrindiau ni, wel, bach iawn o help ni'n mynd i gael yn weitol o achos hynny. A broblem hefyd yw, wrth gwrs, mae yna sawl gwasanaeth sydd yn rhedeg ar draws y ffin. mae'r gwasanaethau hynny yn wasanaethau sydd yn creu arian. Y Caerdydd i Fanceinion yn enghraifft o hwnna, gwasanaethau yn y Gogledd i Fanceinion hefyd. Os chi'n tynnu gwasanaethau hwnna mas o'r franchise, mae yna lai o arian ar gael. A dwi ddim yn gweld unrhyw broblem. Does dim problem gyda banwyr yn rhedeg gwasanaethau mewn i Loegr, ond am ryw reswm mae yna syniad gan Lywodraeth y Daearn Unedig a hefyd y swyddfa Gymreig wrth dweud beth mae'r aelod wedi gweud, taw dim ond gwasanaethau sydd yn dechrau a gorffen yng Nghymru dylai dod o ran o franchise. Mae hwnna'n hollol anheg, anghyfrifol, a dwi ddim yn rhywbeth sydd yn wir ynglyn â'r Alban.
Question 5, Altaf Hussain.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister outline the action of the Welsh Government in taking to improve the recruitment and retention of doctors in Wales?
Well, the recruitment and retention of doctors is the responsibility of health boards and trusts. We support that work in a number of ways, and a 10-year workforce strategy is being developed, which will determine the shape of our medical workforce.
Thank you, First Minister, for that answer. First Minister, one of the major barriers to recruitment of doctors is the state of our education system. Many newly qualified doctors in England refuse to come to Wales because they don't want their children educated here. In addition, yeah, that is a fact. You should read the newspapers and see.
Order, please, order. Let the member finish.
Many newly qualified doctors in England refuse to come to Wales because they don't want their children educated here. In addition, we have seen massive cuts to the higher education sector, particularly in high-cost subjects such as medicine, which will have a huge impact on the number of doctors we train. When will you get your eyes back on the ball and deliver an education system which is fit for purpose and not a barrier to recruitment of doctors?
I utterly reject the idea that the member has put forward, and that the Conservative Party's view should be that the message they give to doctors is don't come to Wales because of the education system. Then where is their Welshness? Where is their loyalty to Wales? I have to say, I find that absolutely extraordinary. And I have to say to the party opposite that the greatest barrier to recruitment in England under their party is the fact that junior doctors go on strike. There is no greater disincentive to doctors to go to England than the fact that they are treated with such disdain by Jeremy Hunt and the UK government. I can say to the member, we have no difficulty in recruiting doctors in Wales. GP numbers have increased by 10.5% between 2004 and 2014.
Andrew Archie-Davis. Quiet. Minister, First Minister.
There are now over 2,000 GPs serving communities right across Wales. There are more doctors, nurses, midwives, paramedics and dental staff working in the NHS today than there were 10 years ago. The number of hospital consultants working in the Welsh NHS increased by nearly 50% between 2004 and 2014, up by 721 to 2,270. That is a sign that Wales is a place to work. The doctors see it as a place they want to come and study and to work in the future, and I reject utterly any idea that the Conservatives want to spread around that somehow there's something wrong with the Welsh education system when they've been responsible for the mess that we see in education and health in England.
Ellen Jones.
Prif Weinidog, mae tua 15 miliwn o arian HEFCO yn cael ei wario ar gyrsiau drud sy'n cynnwys addysg feddygol. Gan eich bod chi'n bwriadu torri'r gyllideb yma o 32%, pa asesiad i chi wedi wneud ar faint llai o ddoctoriaid fydd yn cael ei dysgu a'i fforddi yng Nghymru fel canlyniad i'r toriad yma? Neu oeddech chi'n disgwyl i'r prifysgolion i ddefnyddio i arian wrthgefen, i reserves, i ariannu addysg feddygol?
Wy'n erfyn brifysgolion i ddefnyddio arian sydd gyda nhw, fe wedys i, mae yna incwm sylweddol gyda nhw, mae yna arian gadw gyda nhw hefyd, a byddwn ni'n erfyn nhw wrth gwrs i sicrhau bod y nifer o ddoctoriad yn parhau yn y pen draw.
Kirsty Williams.
First Minister, whilst it is the case that the number of GPs in Wales has increased, that is scant compensation to a number of areas that have seen primary care services lost or threatened because of an inability to recruit full-time GPs or difficulties in accessing locum cover. For instance, in Machynlleth, Colburn, in my own constituency, What steps is the government taking to address one of the concerns that has previously been raised by the profession around a single practitioners list that would cut down on the bureaucracy and thus allow GPs to work more easily on both sides of the border?
I mean, clearly, we want to make sure that it is easy to work on both sides of the border. I think if you look at the examples of where GPs' practices have decided to cease operating, the Health Board takes them over and salaried GPs are placed there instead. That is the trend in medicine anyway. There are fewer and fewer students now who want to buy into a practice. They'd rather be salaried because it gives them the flexibility that they need. They don't want to put the money up front to actually buy into a practice under the contractor model, although for some, that's what they would want. It's true to say, and she's raised issues with me in the chamber before, there are some parts of Wales where there have been difficulties with GP practices. That's the decision of GP practices, not the health service, of course, in terms of the service that they provide. But what I do know is that where practices have decided not to operate, the Health Board does take them over and salary GPs are then put in place.
Question 6, Mike Hedges.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister make a statement on the economy of the Swansea Bay region?
Well, the economy of the Swansea Bay region, as indeed the economy of Wales, is a priority for the Welsh Government, and we are taking forward wide-ranging actions that are supporting jobs, growth and improving the business environment.
Can I thank the First Minister for that response? The development by Swansea University on Fabian Way and the University of Wales Trinity St David's, alongside the mixed developments of SA1, Swansea Vale and Llandarcy, are very important to the Swansea region. What work is being done with the university to grow the local economy in high-skill and high-wage sectors such as life sciences, ICT and professional services?
Well, only yesterday I launched the Advanced Engineering Materials Research Institute in Port Talbot, working closely with higher education, offering opportunities for students to study up to PhD level, and a magnet for manufacturing investment in the future. We are working with officers at Swansea Council to bring forward development under the Swansea Vale joint venture Llandarcy and Fabian Way corridor in order to see how creative sector projects can be taken forward there. I attended the Bay Studios as well yesterday on Fabian Way, but not in Swansea, I know, in the Aberavon constituency. Fantastic venture and huge potential opportunities for the area as well. I can say as well, the Minister for Economy, Sciences and Transport has signed a memorandum of understanding with Trinity St David's University, committing to work with the university on developing its business collaboration as it develops its new campus at SA1.
Susie Davis.
The Economy Minister, of course, has announced her intention to consider the potential for an an enterprise zone around Port Talbot. And as you saw yourself, there's an appeal in the area has got great appeal for other developing engineering companies. Now, retaining that engineering expertise in the wider area would be very valuable for the future of Swansea Bay Tidal Lagoon, for example. But we have seen, haven't we, that there is a risk on depending on one particular type of industry for an area's economic success. The Bay region is going to need a mixed economy with a range of skills, including bilingual skills. So is any consideration being given to any enterprise zone being outside the sectoral approach that this government's stuck to in the last 5 years?
Well, the reason why the enterprise zones are sectoral is to attract clusters to benefit from external economies of scale, so that we see companies in a similar sector clustering in one area, as we've seen it on the M4. We see it particularly on Heathrow Airport as well. We have written, as the member knows, to the Chancellor with our intention to create an enterprise zone around Port Talbot and asking for enhanced capital allowances to be made available. We've not yet had a response. I hope that we see a response certainly in the next few days. I mean, she's right to say, of course, that it's never healthy to rely on one industry alone. The Secretary of State himself, when on the Jason Mohammed programme last week, said that there are many parts of Wales that are still suffering as a result of colliery closures. It was very honest of him to acknowledge that, given it was his party that imposed them in the first place. But what we are looking to do is to broaden the Welsh economy. If we look at Swansea Bay, we do have Port Talbot as a major employer. We do have the power station at Baglan. We do have, of course, the university, the Bay campus, and, of course, we have creative industries in the form of Bay Studios.
Roger Glyn Thomas.
Fe ddywedodd Prif Weinidog y Deyrnas Unedig yn ddiweddar fod ei frwdfrydedd ynglyn â'r cynllun morlun ar gyfer bai Abertawe yn Pili, ei frwdfrydedd yn Pili. Ydych brwdfrydedd chi'n parhau ar gyfer y cynllun hwnnw, Prif Weinidog, ac ar gyfer y cynlluniau ar gyfer morlynnoedd eraill ar gyfer arfordir Cymru?
Ydy, cant y cant. I ni fel Llywodraeth yn gefnogol iawn o'r cynlluniau yma i Abertawe. Ni'n gwybod bod yna gyfleon ynglyn â chyflogaeth, ynglyn â datblygu'r economi, ynglyn â datblygu ardal Port Talbot, ac wrth gwrs twristiaeth. Wy'n flin i weld bod, a wy'n meddwl fi'n flin yn yr ystyr o'r de, wy'n flin i weld bod y Prif Weinidog y Deyrnas Unedig nawr yn gweud bod e'n dechrau blino o'r prosiect ei hunan, a dyw ddim mor gryf tu ôl o fe a beth oedd e, ond allai roi allai weid wrth yr aelod i ni fel Llywodraeth yn 100% tu ôl y prosiect ei hunan.
Peter Black.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. First Minister, on the issue of the tidal lagoon, while we wait for the UK government to make their decision, it does seem an inordinately long time. Can I also raise the issue about the NRW consent for that lagoon, which is also taking a long time to come forward? Do you have any indications when Natural Resources Wales are likely to issue a licence for that lagoon to go ahead?
Well, that's a matter for NRW, of course, but this is not a major issue compared to the strike price. What will determine whether the lagoon goes ahead or not is the strike price that's made available to the developers. We are seeing a UK government that's moving away from renewables. We've seen the hatchet job that's been done on wind. The same thing happened to solar. We've seen the money that's going into to Hinkley Point. What we don't know is, and we see fracking in England, something that many members in this chamber, including my own, don't want to see in Wales. What is the energy policy for the future? We have a tremendous resource in the Bristol Channel, the second highest tidal reach in the world, sitting there ready to be used for creation of energy. The Leader of the Opposition is babbling away there as he does because he's got no answers. But he fails to explain why his own Prime Minister cannot explain why he won't go ahead with the Swansea Bay Tidal Lagoon, why he will not support job creation around Port Talbot, why he will not support renewable energy, while he will not support a project that will benefit the demand for steel in Port Talbot. I know that energy is created in many, many ways, but the hot air he creates, well, that gives us no energy at all, does it?
Gwenda Thomas.
Diolch Llywydd. It's clear from your responses, First Minister, that you agree with me that in developing the economy of the Swansea Bay region, it is vital to ensure that the benefits are felt in all its constituent parts. Key to this will be developing the skill base across the wider region. I think the recently announced Growing Workforces Through Learning and Development project is a very exciting development in this area. Under the lovely acronym GWLAD, this EU-funded scheme will deliver accredited work-based training programmes to 100 participating enterprises in South Wales West. I would very much like to see companies in my constituency amongst that 100. How will you be raising awareness of this excellent opportunity amongst the business community in Leith?
Well, I thank the member for the question. I am delighted that through £2.4 million of EU funds we will be supporting UWTSD to help deliver work-based learning qualifications with employers in the southwest of Wales, including, of course, Neath Port Talbot. All the more vital, of course, given the recent blow that we saw last week to the economy in Port Talbot and the wider county itself. The announcement was covered widely, and I understand that Trinity St David itself will be raising further awareness of the opportunities through the local and regional press, through websites, social media, taster sessions and other marketing campaigns.
Question 7, Darren Miller.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Will the First Minister make a statement on Welsh Government action to promote tourism in Wales, please?
Yes, our tourism strategy sets out our priorities to support the tourism industry, including capital and development funding, along with marketing and promotional opportunities.
First Minister, do you agree with me that one problem which many tourists often cite as a reason for not going back to an area is litter on the streets? And are you therefore concerned about Conway County Borough Council's plans that they are considering, which is to go from fortnightly to 4 weekly intervals for the collection of their general refuse? Many residents have raised this concern with me. They believe that it's unacceptable for general refuse to be collected on a 4 weekly cycle basis, particularly for young families with children in nappies, dog mess, sanitary products, etc., that might be going into the general refuse bins. What action will your government take to ensure that there's appropriate guidance to local authorities regarding these matters?
Well, local authorities must base a decision based on the recycling targets that they're asked to meet, and also, of course, the risk of fly tipping. And they must weigh these arguments carefully. What we do know is we can't return to the days when everything was chucked into a black bag and put into a hole in the ground. They don't exist anymore. They're gone. And the reality is that unless we see more recycling, there will be more of a demand for energy from waste plants, which themselves, as the member will know, are controversial in many parts of Wales. So we don't want to encourage recycling. What I've always said is it's important that recycling is made as easy as possible for people to make sure that they fully understand which containers certain items should go in, that those containers are big enough as well, which I know is an issue in some parts of Wales. I think then people do get used to the idea that when it comes to the black bag collection, that most things have already been recycled through other ways and in other containers. But it is important that people fully understand the reasoning behind any changes and, of course, how they can contribute to recycling as well.
McAnthony.
Minister, there's been an enormous growth in tourism in Wales over the past year. And one of the attractions for Wales is its growing culinary reputation. And one of the attractions within Wales is, of course, our traditional fish and chip shops within Wales. And I wonder, First Minister, if you would recognise and congratulate the Crispy Cod in Tonnereval, where Ryan Hughes has been voted the UK's best young fryer in the whole of the United Kingdom. And I wonder if you will, not only will you write to Ryan and congratulate him on this achievement, but in supporting the Welsh tourist industry and our culinary expertise, accept an invitation from me to join me one night for a fish and chip supper in the Crispy Cod in Tonnereval.
Well, can I first of all congratulate the member on the craft that he displayed in being able to raise the Crispy Cod as an issue here in the Chamber. Could I have my congratulations, of course, to Ryan himself and to the Crispy Cod. They provide a wonderful service for the people of Tonnereval and beyond. It is not often I get an invitation for a bite to eat while I'm answering First Minister's questions, and so on this occasion I'd be delighted to accept.
Rhina Biowydd.
Diolch Llywydd, mae'n hanes global ni, wrth gwrs, yn enwog drwy'r byd, ond mae Mynydd Paris yn Amlwch a Porth Amlwch a rwan amgueddfa Deyrnas Gopr yn ffenest ar hanes rhyfeddol arall, neu ar gyfnod rhyfeddol arall yn hanes diwydiannol ni pan oedd y dre honno'n Ynys Môn yn ganolbwynt i'r diwydiant copr drwy'r byd i gyd. Ond mi fydda'n dda gallu rhannu'r stori efo mwy o bobl. Felly yn ogystal â rhoi gwahoddiad wrth gwrs i'r Prif Weinidog i ddod i Amlwch i weld yr atyniadau dros fo'i hun. Gai ofyn pa gymorth alla'r Llywodraeth i roi mwyn datblygu'r atyniadau yna, mwyn gallu rhannu y stori a dathlu yn treftadaeth ni yn y diwydiant copr.
Fi'n gweld fi'n boblogaidd iawn prynhawn ynglyn â'r gwahoddiadau sy'n dod, ond wrth gwrs mae'r aelod yn iawn, mae Mynydd Paris yn bwysig dros ben ynglyn â'r etifeddiaeth copr a'r diwydiant yng Nghymru. Wedi bod ar y mynydd hunan dros sawl blwyddyn yn ôl nawr, wedi bod yna. A mae'n bwysig dros ben bod bobl yn deall, nid dim ond yr etifeddiaeth, ond daeryddiaeth yr ardal. Mae Mynydd Paris yn unigol ynglyn â beth sydd yn yr ardal, ynglyn â daeryddiaeth y mynydd i hunan. Wel, mae'n rhywbeth agos i Visit Wales i ystyried, ynglyn â mha ffordd allwn ni i hybu Mynydd Paris fel rhywle sydd yn tynnu ymwelwyr mewn i ogledd Ynys Môn.
Ellen Powell.
Diolch Llywydd. First Minister, the centenary of Roald Dahl's birth here in Cardiff is a fantastic opportunity for us to bring tourists here to the capital and to other parts of Wales too, and I look forward to the programme of events that is planned. But would you agree with me that this is the perfect opportunity, the perfect launch pad for the creation of a permanent Roald Dahl centre here in Cardiff to bring tourists to us, but also actually to inspire the next generation of Welsh writers with a love of literature?
It's an interesting idea, of course. I mean, it's the finance that's the question. It would need, no doubt, private finance, certainly, at least to begin with, and it would need to be self-supporting. But certainly, we would very much like to work with any organisation that would wish to put in place a Roald Dahl Centre and celebrate the fact that Cardiff is the birthplace of one of the world's most renowned children's writers.
Christine Chapman.
First Minister, Cannon Valley Museum is very popular amongst tourists and has a lot to offer in terms of promoting the heritage of the South Wales Valleys. I'm not sure if it does fish and chips, but it does offer other things, I know. As a community asset transfer, responsibility for running it was taken over from Rhondda Cynon Taf Council by local volunteers. Now, as councils are increasingly resorting to these transfers due to the effect of spending pressures, what advice or support can the Welsh Government make available to such assets so that they can best pitch themselves to continue to attract tourists?
I think one of the areas that they can look at is to engage with volunteers as much as possible. There are many, many people who want to give their time to museums and who would give that time freely. So if there's a question, for example, of councils finding it difficult in terms of increasing staffing in museums, I'm sure there are volunteers who would love to do it. So times are difficult financially, we know that. Museums are not expected to make money, they are assets for the community. But I'm sure that, that there are volunteers in the Cynon Valley who would be more than willing to get, maybe already, I don't know the structure there, but I'm sure there are even more volunteers who would love to give their time.
Thank you, First Minister. We now move to the next item on the